The manila folder was buried under 4 years of tax returns and Lisa's medical bills. I almost threw the whole box away when I was cleaning out the garage last Saturday. Sarah's tuition payment was due Monday, $60,000 for her second year at Stanford Medical School. And I was digging through old files looking for that home equity paperwork. That's when I found it. U.S. Patent Application Number 11247891, filed March 15, 2017. AI-driven financial fraud detection system with real-time behavioral analysis. Applicant name, Michael Patterson. My signature at the bottom, notarized and everything. I'm Mike Patterson, 48 years old, and I've been building cybersecurity systems for the last 15 years. Right now, I'm sitting in my kitchen at 11 p.m., staring at this document that's about to change everything. The same document that proves I own the technology that's been making Brandon Hutchinson look like a genius for the past 8 years. The memory hit me like a freight train. March 2017, that cybersecurity summit in Denver. Brandon was there as a junior project coordinator, fresh out of his MBA program, asking me basic questions about encryption protocols. His dad had just made him VP of technology, nepotism at its finest, and the kid needed a crash course in everything technical. I spent 2 weeks explaining the difference between firewalls and antivirus software. Meanwhile, I was pulling all-nighters in my hotel room, writing code for a fraud detection system that could analyze transaction patterns in real time. I'd been working on the concept for months, feeding it data sets I'd collected from various financial institutions. The algorithms were revolutionary. They could detect anomalies in spending behavior and flag potential fraud within milliseconds. Brandon was passed out in the hotel bar most nights, still wearing his conference badge, complaining about how technical stuff was boring. His exact words. I remember thinking someone needed to file the patent paperwork before some competitor beat us to it. Legal was backed up until Q4, so I did it myself. Used my personal credit card for the filing fee, figured I'd expense it later. But then the company went through that merger scare. Layoffs hit the engineering department, and everyone forgot about documentation. I kept quiet, kept working, watching Brandon stumble his way through technical presentations using slides I'd created. The fraud detection system went into production 6 months later with Brandon's name all over the architecture documents. For 8 years, I watched him take credit for my work. Every investor meeting, every conference presentation, every tech blog interview, Brandon talking about his revolutionary approach to AI-driven fraud prevention. The system was processing millions of transactions daily, preventing an average of $2.8 million in fraudulent charges per month. Brandon got promoted twice on the strength of that technology. And me, I stayed in the same senior architect role, getting annual reviews about how I was great at execution but needed to work on leadership presence. Last month, Brandon actually told the board that I was more of a maintenance guy than an innovator. I was sitting in the back of that conference room, listening to him describe the system architecture like he'd invented it himself. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Sarah called me from Stanford, stressed about tuition deadlines and whether she should take out additional loans. Medical school debt was already going to be crushing. We were looking at $240,000 total by graduation. I'd been covering most of it from my salary and Lisa's life insurance, but money was getting tight. That same week, Brandon announced he was buying a second vacation home in Aspen. Posted pictures on LinkedIn about investing in work-life balance. The kid was making 3 times my salary, driving a Tesla, taking ski trips every quarter. All while I was driving a 2019 Honda Civic and calculating whether I could afford to replace the water heater. Lisa would have been furious. My wife never tolerated anyone taking advantage of people, especially not some privileged executive who confused daddy's money with actual talent. She died 4 years ago, cancer, and I still hear her voice sometimes when I'm dealing with corporate politics. Mike, stop being so nice. Stand up for yourself. The patent document was like finding buried treasure. I spread it out on my kitchen table next to my laptop and started cross-referencing the filing date with company records. The patent was submitted 8 months before Brandon even joined the fraud prevention team. Every algorithm, every machine learning model, every optimization technique, all documented and legally protected under my name. I called Alex, one of the junior developers I'd been mentoring. Kid was sharp, reminded me of myself 20 years ago. And he'd been getting frustrated watching Brandon take credit for the team's innovations. Alex, hypothetical question. If someone wanted to research patent filings related to fraud detection technology, where would they start? Google Patents database, probably, or the USPTO website. Why? Just curious about the competitive landscape. He paused. Mike, you sound different. Everything okay? Yeah, just thinking about some old projects. After we hung up, I spent 3 hours researching patent law, licensing agreements, and intellectual property rights. The fraud detection system currently running in production was directly based on my patented technology. They'd modified it, added features, optimized performance, but the core algorithms were identical to what I'd filed in 2017. Brandon had built his entire career on stolen intellectual property. Every promotion, every speaking engagement, every industry award, all based on technology he didn't create and legally couldn't claim ownership of. The irony was beautiful. While he was networking at executive dinners and playing golf with investors, I'd been quietly protecting my innovations through proper legal channels. The best part was that nobody at the company had bothered to check the patent database. They all assumed that because I was just a senior architect, I wouldn't have the initiative to file intellectual property claims. Brandon probably didn't even know what a patent application looked like, much less how to research existing filings. I poured myself a beer, Lisa's favorite IPA that I kept buying out of habit, and opened my laptop. Time to make some phone calls. Laura Morrison answered on the second ring. I'd found her contact info through Alex's friend who'd interned at Titan Link last summer. Laura was VP of architecture there, their top technical decision maker, and according to Alex's friend, she didn't waste time on small talk. This is Laura. Ms. Morrison, my name is Mike Patterson. I'm a senior architect with some intellectual property that might interest Titan Link. What kind of IP? AI-driven fraud detection with real-time behavioral analysis. Patent filed, proven performance metrics, currently processing $340 million in transactions monthly. She paused. Send me the documentation. If it's legitimate, we'll talk. I spent Sunday afternoon putting together a presentation package. Patent filing, original code repositories, performance benchmarks, implementation timelines. Every piece of evidence that proved I'd created the technology Brandon had been claiming as his innovation for 8 years. The irony was beautiful. While Brandon was posting LinkedIn updates about his visionary leadership in fintech innovation, I was building a case that would demolish his entire professional reputation. He'd given a keynote speech at FinTech Summit just 3 months ago, standing in front of 500 industry professionals, explaining his approach to fraud prevention algorithms. I'd watched the video online. Brandon using my flowcharts, my terminology, even copying phrases I'd written in technical documentation. At one point, he said, the key insight was recognizing that transaction velocity patterns reveal behavioral anomalies faster than dollar amount thresholds. That exact sentence was from a white paper I'd written in 2016. Monday morning, I sent the package to Laura. Tuesday afternoon, she called back. Mike, this is impressive work. Independent verification shows your patent predates any similar filings by 18 months. Are you claiming your current employer is using this technology without proper licensing? That's exactly what I'm claiming. They've built their entire fraud prevention platform around algorithms I developed and patented independently. And you're the sole inventor listed on the patent? Yes. Every line of code, every algorithm, every optimization technique was developed on my own time using my own resources. We'd like to license this technology. Are you available for a meeting? Thursday morning, I drove to Titan Link's headquarters in downtown Austin. Their offices were impressive. Open floor plans, standing, desks, multiple monitor setups for every developer. Everything our company claimed they couldn't afford while Brandon was booking $50,000 consulting contracts for digital transformation initiatives. Laura walked me through their current fraud detection capabilities. They were using legacy systems, rule-based algorithms that generated too many false positives and missed sophisticated attack patterns. My technology could reduce false positives by 60%, while improving detection accuracy to 96.8%. What's your timeline for implementation? She asked. The core system is already built. I'd need 2 weeks to adapt it for your infrastructure, another week for integration testing. And licensing terms? $1.2 million up front, 12% royalties on transactions processed, exclusive 5-year agreement. She didn't blink. We'll have our legal team review everything. If the IP is clean, we have a deal. That afternoon, I submitted my resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice, professional tone, no mention of intellectual property disputes or patent violations. Just a simple career transition to pursue new opportunities. Brandon's response was typically dismissive. Mike, This seems sudden. Are you sure you're ready for a change? The fraud prevention team really depends on your institutional knowledge. Institutional knowledge. Like I was some kind of legacy database they needed to maintain, instead of the person who'd built their entire competitive advantage. I almost laughed. I'm confident the team can handle things. The system architecture is well documented. Right. Well, good luck with whatever you're doing next. He had no idea what was coming. While Brandon was already planning how to restructure my responsibilities among junior developers, TitanLink's legal team was preparing a comprehensive intellectual property audit. They'd found 47 instances where our company's fraud detection system directly implemented my patented algorithms. The cease and desist letter was delivered Friday at 3 p.m. I wasn't there to see Brandon's reaction, but Alex texted me updates throughout the afternoon. Holy crap, Mike. Legal just locked down the entire fraud prevention codebase. Nobody's allowed to touch anything until further notice. Brandon's been in emergency meetings all day. Keeps asking if anyone knows how to rebuild the core algorithms. Stock price is already down 4%. Some analyst is asking questions about IP exposure on the earnings call. By Monday morning, the story was spreading through industry channels. TechCrunch picked up a brief mention about potential patent disputes affecting fraud detection technology. 2 financial blogs ran pieces about the importance of intellectual property audits in fintech acquisitions. Brandon tried to control the narrative with an internal memo about frivolous legal challenges and disgruntled former employees, but everyone could see the panic. The fraud detection system was offline for routine maintenance, which meant they were scrambling to figure out how much of their technology they actually owned. Meanwhile, TitanLink's implementation was ahead of schedule. My algorithms integrated seamlessly with their infrastructure, and preliminary testing showed even better performance than I'd projected. Response times were 40% faster, accuracy was up to 97.2%, and the system could handle twice the transaction volume of our old implementation. Sarah called Tuesday evening, excited about an email from Stanford's financial aid office. Apparently, they'd identified some additional merit-based assistance for students whose parents worked in technology innovation. The timing was perfect. I'd be able to cover her tuition without touching the licensing advance from TitanLink. Dad, this is amazing. How did you manage to qualify for innovation grants? Just some patent work I've been doing? Technical stuff. You filed a patent? That's incredible. Mom always said you were too modest about your accomplishments. Lisa would have been proud, not just about the money or the career move, but about finally standing up to corporate politics and claiming credit for my own work. She'd always pushed me to be more assertive, to stop letting other people take advantage of my technical skills and quiet personality. The best part was watching Brandon try to explain the situation to investors and clients. How do you tell people that your flagship technology might disappear overnight because you never bothered to verify who actually owned it? The company's emergency board meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning. Alex kept me updated through encrypted messages. He'd learned to be careful about corporate surveillance after watching several colleagues get fired for inappropriate communications over the years. They brought in external IP lawyers from Dallas, 3 guys in $2,000 suits carrying briefcases that probably cost more than my car. Brandon's been locked in the conference room for 6 hours. Any word on what they're finding? Nothing official, but Janet in legal looks like she's about to throw up. She keeps printing documents and shredding them immediately. The beauty of intellectual property law is that it doesn't care about corporate hierarchies or family connections. Code doesn't lie, timestamps don't play favorites, and patent filings create an immutable record of innovation. Brandon could charm investors and impress board members, but he couldn't retroactively invent a time machine to file patents before I did. Meanwhile, TitanLink's legal team was having a field day. They'd identified not just the core fraud detection algorithms, but 23 related optimizations and 14 subsidiary features that all traced back to my original patent filing. Each implementation represented additional licensing violations, each carrying potential damages in the millions. I got a call from William Hutchinson himself that evening. Brandon's father, the CEO, voiced tight with barely controlled anger. Mike, I think we need to discuss this situation like reasonable adults. What situation is that, Mr. Hutchinson? This patent claim. I'm sure we can work something out that benefits everyone. I'm not interested in working anything out. I'm moving forward with my new career. Look, Brandon speaks very highly of your technical contributions. Maybe we undervalued your role in developing this technology. Maybe. William, your son has been claiming credit for my work for 8 years. He's given keynote speeches about algorithms he couldn't code if his life depended on it. Silence on the other end. Then, what would it take to make this go away? Nothing. Because this isn't going away. Your company stole my intellectual property, built your competitive advantage around it, and profited for nearly a decade. Now you get to face the consequences. The lawsuit they threatened never materialized. Their IP lawyers took one look at the patent documentation, the timeline evidence, and the clear implementation matches, then advised immediate settlement discussions. Fighting a patent infringement case they couldn't win would only generate more negative publicity and legal costs. By Friday afternoon, 3 major clients had put their contracts on hold pending resolution of the IP dispute. Norris Financial, their biggest enterprise customer, issued a public statement about evaluating alternative fraud prevention providers due to concerns about technology stability and legal exposure. The junior developers started jumping ship almost immediately. Alex resigned Monday morning, citing lack of confidence in technical leadership. 2 other senior engineers followed by Wednesday. These weren't kids fresh out of college. They were experienced professionals with 10 to 15 years in cybersecurity who'd watched Brandon take credit for their innovations too many times. Jennifer Walsh, one of the lead developers I'd mentored for 3 years, posted a LinkedIn thread that went viral in tech circles. After 8 years watching management take credit for engineering innovations, I'm done pretending this is normal. The fraud detection system everyone thinks was revolutionary? That was Mike Patterson's work from day one. The real innovators in this industry deserve recognition, not exploitation. She tagged me in the post. Within 24 hours, it had 20,400 likes and 340 comments from other developers sharing similar experiences. Industry veterans started rallying around the story, sharing their own examples of technical professionals getting undermined by non-technical executives. Brandon tried damage control with his own LinkedIn post about collaborative innovation and team success, but the comments section destroyed him. Someone had dug up his keynote speech from FinTech Summit and posted side-by-side comparisons with my original technical documentation. Every slide, every diagram, every key insight, all traceable to work I'd published months or years before Brandon even understood the concepts. The most damaging comment came from Dr. Sarah, a respected AI researcher at MIT. I reviewed the patent filing and implementation details. This is clear-cut intellectual property theft. The financial industry should be concerned about working with organizations that don't respect IP rights. TitanLink's system went live the following Monday with 0 fanfare and maximum impact. My fraud detection algorithms integrated seamlessly with their infrastructure, processing transactions 50% faster than the old implementation while maintaining 97.1% accuracy. Within 48 hours, 3 financial institutions had signed pilot agreements. The performance metrics were spectacular. False positive rates dropped by 65%, processing speeds increased by 40%, and the system could handle peak transaction loads that would have crashed the old architecture. Everything I designed the system to do, but never had the resources or executive support to implement properly. Sarah called that evening, excited about her latest microbiology exam results, but more interested in the industry buzz around my patent story. Dad, everyone in my study group is talking about your situation. Apparently it's becoming a case study in intellectual property law classes. Really? Yeah, and not just the legal aspects. One of my friends is doing her MBA thesis on how technical talent gets exploited in corporate environments. She wants to interview you. I'm not sure I'm ready for academic analysis. Dad, you're not just standing up for yourself, you're standing up for everyone who's ever had their work stolen by incompetent management. Mom would say that's worth talking about. Lisa always believed that doing the right thing had a ripple effect. Stand up to bullies, support your colleagues, protect your innovations. Not for revenge, but because someone has to draw the line. She'd spent her last months encouraging me to be more assertive, to stop letting corporate politics undermine my contributions to the field. The investigation results leaked Thursday afternoon. An internal audit had identified $47 million in licensing fees and damages related to my patent violations. The company's insurance wouldn't cover intellectual property theft, meaning the costs would come directly from operating budget and shareholder equity. Brandon's termination letter was hand-delivered Friday at 4 p.m. No severance package, No transition period, just immediate removal from all systems and a security escort to clean out his office. According to Alex, who was visiting the office to return his laptop, Brandon tried arguing that he'd collaborated on the fraud detection development. The security guard wasn't interested in technical discussions. Neither was HR, legal, or the board of directors. When your entire professional reputation is built on stolen intellectual property, termination isn't a negotiation, it's damage control. Titan Link offered me the chief security architect position before my non-compete period was even over. Real equity, actual decision-making authority, and a team of developers who understood the difference between innovation and buzzword presentations. The salary was 40% higher than my old job, but more importantly, they valued technical expertise over political connections. My first day at Titan Link felt like stepping into a parallel universe where engineers were treated as professionals instead of interchangeable resources. The development team had individual offices, dual monitor setups, and unlimited conference budgets for continuing education. Laura Morrison introduced me to the executive team as the architect who's going to revolutionize our fraud detection capabilities. Within 2 weeks, we had 6 financial institutions requesting pilot programs. The fraud detection system was processing 2.3 million transactions daily with 97.4% accuracy and false positive rates below 2%. Banks were seeing immediate cost savings from reduced manual review requirements and improved customer satisfaction from fewer legitimate transactions getting flagged. Meanwhile, my old company was hemorrhaging clients and talent. The stock price had dropped 31% since the patent dispute became public knowledge. 2 more enterprise customers terminated their contracts, citing concerns about technology stability and potential service disruptions. The board fired William Hutchinson 3 months after Brandon's termination, bringing in an outside CEO to manage the crisis. Alex joined Titan Link in January as a senior developer. During his exit interview, he'd mentioned that the remaining fraud detection team was spending 60-70% of their time maintaining legacy code they didn't understand. Without institutional knowledge about the core algorithms, simple updates were taking weeks instead of hours. Mike, you should see the mess they're trying to patch together. 3 different consulting firms, each proposing different approaches to rebuild the fraud detection system. None of them understand the underlying mathematics. How much are they spending on consultants? Last I heard, about $200,000 per month. And they're not even close to functional equivalence with what you built. The irony was perfect. Brandon had dismissed me as not leadership material while building his entire career on technology he couldn't recreate, maintain, or even properly explain. Now they were paying consultants 10 times my old salary to attempt reverse engineering my work. The industry recognition started building momentum in unexpected ways. Dr. Sarah from MIT invited me to guest lecture in her AI ethics course about intellectual property protection for technical professionals. The lecture hall was packed. 200 graduate students plus faculty from computer science, business, and law departments. Intellectual property theft isn't just about money, I told them. It's about respect, recognition, and the fundamental relationship between innovation and ownership. When executives claim credit for work they didn't do, they're not just stealing from individuals, they're undermining the entire incentive structure that drives technological progress. The questions afterward were intense. MBA students wanted to understand the business implications, computer science students were interested in patent strategy, and law students were analyzing the broader precedent. One student asked the question that had been bothering me for months. Do you think Brandon knew he was stealing your work, or did he genuinely believe he'd contributed to the innovation? Honestly, I think he convinced himself that management and technical contribution were equivalent. He managed the team that implemented my algorithms, so in his mind, he deserved credit for the innovation. It's a common problem in technology companies, confusing coordination with creation. Sarah attended the lecture, sitting in the back row with her study group. Afterward, she introduced me to her friends as my dad, the patent guy. One of them was working on that MBA thesis about technical talent exploitation and had some sobering statistics. Based on patent filings and corporate credit attribution, we estimate that 60-70% of technical innovations get credited to non-technical managers. It's especially pronounced in companies where engineers don't have equity participation or formal IP sharing agreements. The numbers were depressing, but not surprising. How many other developers were watching their innovations get rebranded and resold by executives who couldn't code a simple loop? How many potential breakthroughs were getting buried because the actual inventors didn't have the political skills to claim credit? The CyberSec conference keynote invitation came in March. They wanted me to speak about innovation, attribution, and industry ethics at the main auditorium session. 800 security professionals plus streaming audience of several thousand more. The biggest speaking opportunity of my career. And they specifically requested that I address the patent dispute directly. I spent weeks preparing not just the technical content, but the broader message about professional respect and intellectual honesty. Lisa always said that if you're going to take a stand, make sure it's worth the effort. This wasn't just about my patent anymore, it was about changing how the industry treated technical talent. The day before the keynote, I got a text from an unknown number. "Mike, this is Brandon. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. "There's nothing to discuss. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. This whole situation got out of hand. The situation got resolved exactly as it should have. I'm trying to rebuild my career. Industry people won't even return my calls." I didn't respond. Brandon had spent 8 years building his reputation on stolen work, collecting promotions and speaking fees based on innovations he didn't create. The fact that his professional network had evaporated wasn't my problem. It was the natural consequence of intellectual dishonesty catching up with him. The keynote went better than I'd hoped. I opened with the patent story, but focused most of the presentation on practical advice for protecting intellectual property and building genuine technical leadership. The audience was engaged, asking detailed questions about patent strategy, documentation practices, and managing corporate politics as a technical professional. During the Q&A, someone asked about forgiveness and second chances for executives who'd made attribution mistakes. I thought about Brandon's text message before answering. Intellectual property theft isn't a mistake. It's a choice. When someone repeatedly claims credit for work they didn't do, presents innovations they didn't create, and builds their career on stolen contributions, that's not an oversight, it's fraud. The technology industry will be healthier when we stop making excuses for that behavior. The applause was sustained and genuine. After the session, dozens of people approached with their own stories of innovation theft, patent disputes, and corporate credit grabbing. The problem was endemic, but most technical professionals felt powerless to fight back against well-connected executives. Walking to my car afterward, I thought about the long arc from that night in my garage, finding the patent documentation, to this moment of industry recognition. The revenge had been satisfying, but the real victory was bigger than personal vindication. It was about changing the conversation around technical contribution and professional respect. Sarah called while I was driving home. "Dad, I watched the live stream. Mom would have been so proud. You didn't just win, you made it matter for other people too." She was right. The patent was still generating royalties, Titan Link was thriving, and Brandon was learning to live with the consequences of building his career on other people's work. But the most important outcome was that other technical professionals were starting to stand up for themselves, document their innovations, and demand appropriate recognition. At 48 years old, I'd finally learned that being indispensable to the wrong people is worthless. Being respected by the right people, that's everything.